take it away, feeling too good to me.
Ooh, and look at the snatcheroo on the waistline. It is giving me established auntie vibes, like auntie who has her stuff together. That is what this outfit is giving me. What's up, K-Divas, and welcome back to the channel this week. This is going to be a tutorial for a twist front dress. Now this dress, I showed how to make the pattern for, how to cut and stitch it all together, and I worked with stretch fabric. However, this is something you can do with woven fabric. You just have to be mindful of when you make the pattern and how much fabric you would need for the process. I ended up using 2 meters of fabric for this dress, and the length came down to my knee. So it's a very, I would say, classy, modest style that you can even play around with the neckline. You can play around with the length of the dress. I think if I were to make this dress again, I'll definitely make it like longer, like mid-calf or even down to my ankles, because you have the freedom to do so when you create the pattern. Now make sure to keep on watching till the end, because I show you guys the finished product. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. But I wanted to let you guys know that my course, like, I have been working on this course for the longest time, and I want to just thank you guys so much for being patient with me, because this course was meant to come out a while ago, but I just wanted to do it right, getting useful feedback, and make sure that it was ready to put out to the world. The course is now available for pre-order. I'm going to put the link down below so you guys can go check out the website. It's a different platform and a safe space where I have created this course in chapters, and it covers pattern making, it covers how to take lower and upper body measurements, sewing terminology, different things that I think would be very useful if you're someone who is starting, like with learning how to sew, someone who just wants a solid foundation as you learn how to like make your own clothes, get into sewing, really understand the tools and materials you need. I think it's a really good course to go through if that is what you're looking for. You could also give this to someone who is studying fashion or someone who is starting your own business. I think I'm just so proud of the work I have done. I would like to thank my testers, who were people who tried out the course and gave me feedback on what was working, what they liked. That just made the whole experience really full and fulfilling. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you do get the course, and now you get an early bird pricing, which is a lot cheaper than the actual pricing that would go up when the course launches on the 4th of March. I'm actually wearing one of the pieces from the course. We made this shift dress together, and I don't think I've done a shift dress on my channel, so it's like a really nice exclusive project on there for those of you who would be joining the program. So I'm going to look forward to seeing what you guys think, what your feedback would be, because the chapters going forward are going to be based on what you guys want me to create on the course. But I'm just so excited it's actually out in the world. It's out in the world for you guys to see and use, and it would launch on the 4th of March. That is when the full curriculum, all the videos and everything would go up. There are over 8 lectures, so it's like proper, real good content out there. After each lecture, there is a quiz for you to like go through, and you get graded on how many % of the quizzes you got right or wrong. So it's like a real, like, almost classroom experience. That's why I wanted to do it right and just have it like fully prepared for you guys to see. Okay, so now that I've gotten that off my chest, because I just wanted to get the course ready before I announce it to you guys, and I'm just looking forward to see how much fun we have together on that platform and on here on YouTube as well going forward. Now that that is all said, let's get into this tutorial of making this dress, and yeah, let's do this. These are the following measurements I'm going to be using to create the patterns for this dress. So I recommend working with yours or that of your client for the absolute best outcome. Once you have those measurements written out, we're going to start off with creating the patterns. And as always, I like to start with the front. Now I have a big sheet of pattern paper here, and I'm going to be drawing a long vertical line that is going to become my center front line, and then I'm just going in here to mark the full length of the dress. Mine was 39 inches. I wish I had made it longer, if I'm being very honest, but I had to work with the amount of fabric that I had, which was 2 meters. And I'm just going in here to square across the top of that vertical line, and this is going to become my shoulder point that will guide me to create the neckline and the sleeve of this dress. And I'm just going in here to mark 3.5 inches downwards and 3 inches sideways, and connect those points together to draw a circular neckline like so. Now I'm just going in here to mark the sleeve length. Since it's a kimono type sleeve, my sleeve length is 19 inches, so the sleeve length I marked from that top shoulder point all the way down to the hem, and I'm just drawing in a slanted line that will become the top of my shoulder seam. Now vertically downwards, I'm marking the vertical distance from my shoulder to my bust, then I'm marking the vertical distance from my bust to my waist, and then I'm marking the distance from my waist to my hip. These are my measurements, so for the best outcome, work with yours. In here, I'm just going to square those points across, so I have horizontal lines to mark my body dimensions, so for my bust, my waist, my hip, and later on for the hemline of the dress as well. Along the bust line, I'm going in here to mark a quarter of my bust measurement minus half an inch, and then I'm going to be marking a quarter of my waist measurement along my waistline minus half an inch, and along my hip line I'm going to be marking a quarter of my hip measurement minus half an inch. I'm minusing those half an inch because my fabric has stretch. If your fabric doesn't, I would say mark your measurement plus a little bit of ease. And I'm just going in here to connect those side points together. I'm in here drawing the bottom of my sleeve hem. My sleeve hem is 5 inches wide on the very bottom because it's going to sit around my elbow, so I want a little bit of room and movement there. Now I'm just going to connect that line to my side seam. Since this is a kimono style sleeve in quotes, it's a sleeve that connects from under the arm to the side of the dress, so it curves in a way that allows movement, and that way you don't need to make a separate sleeve pattern. Now I'm just going in here to draw in the hemline of my dress like so, and my hemline width is roughly 9 inches because I wanted it to just pencil in just a little bit at the bottom of the dress. Now once I have that drawn in place, this is what the front of the dress looks like. This is a cool pattern you can even use to make a simple bodycon midi style dress if you don't want to add the tie front detail that this design has. But I went back in to just add just a little bit extra in that underarm area. This would allow me to move my arm a lot easier, lift it up, hug people, and not have the dress rip along the side seam. Now after that, I'm going in to add a seam allowance around the shoulder, the bottom of the sleeve, along the side seam, so I'm able to cut this pattern onto fabric and have room to join panels together. Once I was done adding all the annotations and the seam allowance, I'm going to actually trace off the same shape for my back dress pattern. The back dress has the same shape along the shoulder, the side seam, the hemline, the center back, but it has a higher neckline compared to the front. I'll say the back neckline is 1 to 1.5 inches higher, so that way it sits a lot higher on the back of the dress. And the back of the dress will be cut on a fold, so you don't need to add a seam there, but that is the main difference. So the back neckline is about 3 inches below the shoulder point compared to the front neckline that is 3.5 inches below the shoulder point. I'm just going to go in to cut out both patterns, so the front and the back, and have them ready to be changed up, especially for the front, because the front is going to have that detail that allows you to tie around the waist and add a lot of texture and personality to the dress. So these are the two patterns all cut out, my front and my back. I've added annotations saying how many I need to cut of each, which side is cut on a fold, and I'm going to set my back piece to the side because that one is done, and now I can focus on changing up the front of the dress. Along the waistline, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches inwards, and from that 1.5 point, I'm going to be drawing 2 diagonal lines, one upwards towards the bust line, and then one sidewards or downwards towards the hip line. And along these lines, we're going to be slashing and spreading, and that's where we're going to be adding the volume for the belt. Now I'm going to cut along the waistline, cut onto the very edge so I'm able to spread this pattern easily. Then I'm going to cut along these diagonal lines that we drew, cutting as close as possible to the edge for the top and the bottom diagonal line that I drew in. Once I have those in place, I'm going to grab some paper and place that underneath that area of the pattern. Now starting from, you can start from the bottom or start from the top. From the bottom edge, which is around the hip area, I'm going to be spreading that area by about 1.5 inches. So this particular area here, and I added my spread in the middle, and it added quite a bit of volume. So I guess if you want to reduce the volume, you just spread yours less. Hopefully that works. This second part I'm spreading by 2 inches, and I'm going to be adding some tape to just secure the panels onto the paper underneath. Then I'm spreading this top and last area by 2 inches as well. Once I have all of them spread in place, I'm going to be adding in the belt extension. Before I do that, I'm going to be drawing a line that sort of connect the two 1.5 points that I drew before spreading. And then my belt itself is 10 inches long. I wish I had made my belt at least double that length, because I would have had room to play around with, tie a knot, tie a bow, but it wasn't long enough. And I'm just going in to draw the sides of the belt from the top and the bottom edge. I say having a thinner belt might be more flattering, because mine was actually quite thick, as you can see here, and it just ended up creating a lot of ribbon material that I had to then work with and tie around the body. So make your belt longer, make it a little bit thinner as you are extending it outwards, and I just think it will just make a much more flattering belt that you're able to play around with. Now I'm just going in here to cut out the pattern, and it was at this point I realized I did not add seam allowance to my center front. So when I cut this pattern and stitched it all together, I lost a bit of measurement along the neckline and along the hips, but my luck was that this fabric had stretched, the fabric I made the dress with. So please add seam allowance on your center front edge before you cut it out like I did. I was meant to do that before cutting out the front pattern, so the front already had that center front edge seam allowance, because the front you would need to cut 2 pieces off. Now for that belt area that we extended, I'm going to be creating a separate pattern piece. I'll act sort of like a facing to help finish the edges of the belt, so when it's tied around the waist, you don't see any raw edges or any exposed seams on the garment. Now I have my pattern piece there. I added my annotations. You need to cut a pair of the belt facing and a pair of your front of the dress pattern. Alright, so I have prepared all the patterns. The dress has a total of 3 patterns, 1 piece for the front, 1 piece for the back, and then the kind of facing for the belt that would help to finish it nicely on the front. I've just pinned everything down on the fabric. I had to turn the front slightly against or away from the green line. Rather than have the green line be the one where I drew where the belt is, I decided to shift the green line to align with the hip line, because then it fits my fabric. I will say, if you are making this style, try and get a wide fabric so you're able to fit the front piece either as one or you'll be able to cut it as a pair. Let me show you what I mean by that. So here is the way my front piece is looking. That bottom side is the bottom of the dress. This is the middle with the belt extension, and the top is bent towards the selvage. I just hope that does not look weird when the dress is all done, but that's how I've placed it. So rather than have the grain line in this direction, the grain line is in that direction, which is parallel to the selvage of the fabric. So that's how I placed the front. The back I have just placed against the fold here, but my table is not long enough, so I'm going to cut the front first and then shift the fabric upwards. I also have my belt, which I cut in a similar direction to the extension here. The plan is to cut everything, and then I think I'm going to add the facing of the belt before joining up the center front seams on the top and on the bottom, and then stitch it in a little bit so there is like no holes or opening on this piece. So I'm going to go in now, cut out everything and start stitching. I'm just going in here to cut out the dress with the pattern guiding me along the way. I'm just cutting along the edge of the sewing pattern that is already pinned onto the fabric. I'm going to cut out my front, my back, as well as the belt facing panels. Prepare everything to be joined together. With some chalk, I also just quickly marked the right and the wrong side of the fabric because this fabric has both sides looking very similar. So thankfully, when I bought the fabric, it was sold to me in a particular direction, so I had an idea of what side was the right and the wrong side. I also indicated which side was the front and which side was the back, and this chop rubs up a lot easy with just like damp cloth and water. So now that I have all of my pieces cut out, I'm going to go into sew. I'm going to start off with the front of the dress since that's where most of the drama is, and I'm going to be joining the belt facing to the belt extension along the front. So I'm putting right sides together and I'm just matching notched point to notched point, and I'm going to be joining the facing to the extended edges along the top, along the side, all the way around, leaving that inner middle section open because that one will join together separately later on. Sewing only 1 centimeter seam allowance. I'm just sewing using a normal straight stitch on my machine, turning at necessary points. So I just use one continuous stitch to join the entire piece to that particular side of the front of the dress. I did this for both sides, so for the left side and the right side, stitching as close as possible to the edge. I went ahead to turn the belt inside out so I have the right side showing like so before putting the center front edges together. So that I'm going to be sewing and sewing into this corner so there is no exposed hole or opening showing. I'm going to do it for the top and the bottom edge of the dress along the center front edge. Please remember to add your seam allowance because when I was sewing it was too late to add seam allowance, so please add on your pattern or onto your fabric when you are cutting. You could easily just draw the seam allowance with a chalk if you don't want to have seam allowance included in your patterns. So I'm going to finish off this corner before heading off to sew the other end, sewing as close as possible to the belt edge, and then I'm going to be joining the facings along this part like so. So this is the wrong side of the fabric and I've put right sides together because if I don't sew those parts together, there's going to be an opening right in the middle of that part of the waistline where we've extended to add the belt. So after doing this, I went and gave my piece a press to relax all of the stitching. This is what it looks like so far and I'm happy with it. I'm going to be joining the front to the back along the shoulder and along the side seams. Just going to add some pins to ensure that I have my notches aligned and both of my pieces do not move around when I move this piece from the table to my sewing machine. Now I went in to overlock initially thinking I would be able to just overlock and not have to do a seam before overlocking, but when I pulled the seams apart I could see the overlock thread and I didn't really like that. If your overlocker is one that sews and overlocks and you're happy with the outcome, then you just need to overlock because it's a stretch fabric. But after overlocking, I took my dress back to my machine and I stitched out along the seams just to finish it off. So I've popped on the dress just to check for the fit. Ooh, and look at the snatcheroo on the waistline. Now the one thing I'll say is I wish I had made the strap a bit longer, but my fabric would have never been enough. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to be recreating this. Make that belt strap extension, I'll say longer than 10 inches, 15, 16 if you want it to really wrap around and tie on the back of your waist. I also wish I made the dress just a little bit longer. It is on my knee, so I can wear this to church. I can wear this for like, you know, smart type events, and it's decent. So it covers like neck, covers the leg to a good point, and it has a bit of sleeve. I can lift my hand and bring it down. So the fit is lovely. I just wish I made the strap longer and the dress longer by just a little bit. I like my dresses more midi, so like below the knee rather than just on the knee there. But you can have yours this length if you don't mind like how this fits. I think I'll drop the neckline a little bit lower though, just a little bit too high. I think I'll just drop it lower by like say 1 inch, and then I would roll and stitch down the hemline, and then roll and stitch the neckline, sorry, and then the hemline as well. But oh, this is nice. This is really pretty. I'm not mad. I'm actually not mad at this at all. This makes it really nice. I'm going to church, and then after church I'm going out for brunch. This is the perfect dress. As I mentioned earlier on, I went in to drop the neckline by 1 inch, so I pinned the front neckline together on a fold, and then I just drew in how much I wanted to take away, and I'm cutting it out like so. That way I have the desired neckline I want. I kept the back high, but I dropped the front. Now the last thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to roll and stitch the hemline of the dress, so that's the very bottom of the dress. I'm also going to finish this off. I ended up not even hemming the bottom of the sleeve because I could get away with it since the fabric is a knitted fabric and it doesn't fray. So I knew once I had hemmed the bottom of the dress, give it a nice press, I could try it on to see the final outcome. So this is the dress all done. I am pretty happy with the outcome. There are just a few things I would tweak if I were to do this style again. The first thing, as I mentioned earlier on, was I would definitely make the dress longer. Like, you know, that mid-calf midi length, that's just, I don't know, maybe as I get older I tend to prefer like more midi style dresses. Every now and again I'll wear shorter dresses, but I think if I were to make this again, I'll definitely go longer with the length of the dress. I'm happy with the length of the sleeve. I think it's a really nice 3/4 length. I didn't hem my sleeve though, but I think I might do later on in the week or in the month, because even though it does not fray, I just think let me just hem it because it just looks a lot tidier. I did drop the neckline, so this is what the new neckline looks like. It's not as high as it was. Actually, quite prefer it like this. I could wear like a necklace and it would drop nicely up until like here. So this is cute. I'm loving this. How are we feeling about this dress? The fabric color I am very pleased with, because I wanted to go really bright like mint green or red, but I've done those colors on my channel already. I was like, let me do something more berry, so a mixture of like purple and like that like berry type color, which was why I picked this color of the jersey. This fabric is scuba jersey, so it is stretchy and it has a little bit of weight, so you don't see like your undergarment when you have the outfit on. It is giving me established auntie vibes, like auntie who has her stuff together. That is what this outfit is giving me. If you guys will be recreating this, please tag me on social media at Kimdane Designs. As usual, I would love to see your recreations and your twists. You guys always have a way of choosing very interesting fabrics, playing around with the different dimensions and features of the dress, so it really suits you well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe and join the K-Divas fam if you haven't already. And until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.